Hi, I'm Joe Soleil with Federal National Commercial Credit. Welcome back. This is the 6th video in our series, Factoring Costs, the 10 most misunderstood cost drivers. Today we're going to talk about whole turnover. It's an industry expression. You may recall in our last video about settlement credit and float, we talked about the assignment of accounts receivable. This is when a factoring company or asset-based lender notifies the borrower's customers that the invoices should be paid to a lockbox controlled by the finance company. This is very common practice in the industry. In fact, it's very unusual to find a finance company that does not do it this way. It is also common practice that a factoring company might require that you assign all of the accounts receivable, that the borrower assign all of the accounts receivable, even those that the borrower doesn't really intend to finance. That's pretty common practice. And sometimes some people will call that whole turnover. That kind of whole turnover really doesn't have any effect on the cost of the factoring. It just means that all the payments are going to come through the lockbox. However, this is a series about the costs of factoring and asset-based lending and what to look for in agreements to understand fully what your costs may be. So it's not that kind of whole turnover that we want to talk about here. The version of whole turnover that I'd like to talk to you about today is one where the finance company requires that all of the accounts receivable be assigned to the lockbox. But more importantly, they also require that all of the accounts receivable be financed every month. Now, if you're a company that is in a situation, and many are, that they really want to finance as much of their accounts receivable as they can every month. They're in strong growth mode, they need all of that money every time and do for the foreseeable future need all of that money. There is no special cost to this. There's no cost to a whole turnover requirement. However, if you're a business that believes a month, 2, 3, 6 months down the road, maybe you won't need to finance all of your AR. You won't need all of that money. You'll have begun to see some cash coming in. You'll have recouped some profits from your contracts. Maybe you know there's money coming in from somewhere else that will relieve the tight cash situation. Whatever it is, if you believe that you may not need to finance everything, you may not need all that money, then a whole turnover of this nature that requires you finance everything every month becomes quite expensive. For example, let's say you bill $300,000 a month to your customers, and you get ahead of things, and your cash situation's in pretty good shape, and you really only feel like you need to finance about half of that. Well, if your normal fee, your quoted fee, is going to cost you about 2% of your invoice amount, and let's say the invoice stays out 30 days or 40 days, something like that, and it's going to cost you 2%. And you only really need half of that money, but you have to finance all of it. You're basically paying twice as much for what you need. So instead of paying 2%, you're actually paying 4%. So it is important to watch for whole turnover provisions in an agreement. Ask about those. Make sure you know how they work. Again, if the factor or asset-based lender is requiring that everything be assigned to you, but is being flexible about how much you actually have to finance and will incur charges on, well, there's no special cost to the whole turnover provision in that case. However, if their version of whole turnover requires that you assign everything and finance everything every month, have a look at your cash flow plans. If you're not going to need to finance all of that every month, it could cost you a lot more money. I'm Joe Soleil with Federal National Commercial Credit. Thanks very much for watching.